My name is Ron Peperkamp, and as the director of the Art Reserve Bank, I will try to explain something about the organization and especially the background of this extraordinary experiment. So let me start with a very simple question. What is the best, most beautiful or most impressive work of art that mankind has ever created? Is it the Pyramid of Gizeh? The Sistine Chapel? Well, as a Dutchman I would say the Night Watch. But according to the art market, it is the Card Players by Cézanne, a painting that was auctioned for $259 million to the Emir of Qatar, only to be trumped by his nephew, who paid a whopping $300 million for this painting by Gauguin. Perhaps a little excessive for a piece of linen of just 101 by 77 centimeters. Now, I think the greatest work of art that mankind has ever created is not a tangible object, but rather a more abstract work. I refer, of course, to the complex, multidimensional and multi-layered artwork that has literally enriched the lives of all human beings on the planet, namely the capitalist system. This amazing conceptual artwork has taken us from an agrarian, rural society to the present urban and technologically highly developed world. Thanks to capitalism, the world of scarcity has changed in just 2 or 3 centuries to a world of unprecedented abundance. At least in our part of the world where the winners are. Because as we all know, the wealth generated by this system is distributed very poorly. The latter can be explained by the place where modern capitalism was invented. Many believe this to be 18th century London or even 19th century New York, but they are wrong. It happened much earlier in an insignificant town at a poorly accessible estuary of the North Sea, and that place is of course Amsterdam. Here, at the beginning of the 17th century, arose from a strange cocktail of liberalism, individualism and a lot of opportunism, 3 innovative institutions. First, the Dutch India Company, a revolutionary idea to combine private capital of ordinary citizens into one powerful organization, whose property and risk was divided across all participants, who equally shared the profits. Second, the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, where the shares in these enterprises and the goods they brought into the city were first traded freely. But both institutions could only flourish thanks to the decision by the City Council to establish the Amsterdam Exchange Bank. Because of the increased trade in the Dutch Republic, there were innumerable different coins in circulation. But the exact value of these currencies was often questioned, and this hindered commerce. Therefore, the Amsterdam Exchange Bank introduced a new currency, the bankguilder. Everybody could have their ambiguous coins valuated and securely stored in the vault as bankguilders. These guilders were not coins, but only existed on paper in the ledgers of the bank, where the deposits, withdrawals and settlements with other accounts were administered. Here is, for example, the somewhat feeble account that the philosopher Spinoza inherited from his father. Account holders knew they would get proper coins as they claimed their deposit from the bank. They would receive coins containing a fixed amount of gold or silver. Thus, the bankguilder became the perfect standard for all trade, the first reliable reserve currency. Pooling of private capital, free trade of risk and property, and a stable currency, these were the ingredients of the great collective work of art that mankind has created here in Amsterdam. A machine that turned all problems of scarcity into business opportunities. A machine that generated lucrative solutions to all technical, medical and food problems that had troubled mankind ever since we crawled out of the primordial slime. A machine that enabled us to generate endless economic growth. Am I exaggerating? Well, Not really. Just look at the numbers. This graph shows how, since the invention of capitalism, our average income has spectacularly increased. Converted into modern dollars, our general annual income has increased from only $500 in 1600 to more than $6,500 today. Be aware that this is the average income of all people in the world. However, because of medical and technical innovations generated by the capitalist machine, the world's population has also exploded, from less than 500 million in 1600 to more than 7 billion today. So the average annual income of $6,500 is a somewhat distorted figure. The average income in the Netherlands, for example, has increased to a whopping $40,000, while nearly 1 billion people in regions such as Africa and Asia still live on less than $1 a day. And mind you, this is less than we started with 3 centuries ago. So the capitalist system works very well for its inventors and early adapters, like the Northern European countries and their overseas dominions, but pretty lousy for the other parts of the world. Fortunately, in recent decades, we see these other countries slowly but surely hitching on the capitalist bandwagon. That is, of course, great for all those people who also want a car, a flat screen, and an iPad. But here we are running into a problem. Because if those big balls in the left corner raise up to our level of consumption, then things will go very wrong. If 1 billion Indians start to clean their toilets with products like toilet duck, then in a fortnight all oceans will be dead. For the capitalist machine has slowly turned into a consumption machine. Capitalism was invented in a different era and designed for an entirely different world. A world where behind every horizon there were still new things to be discovered. A world where endless new markets were waiting to be opened, and a world that was inhabited by barely 1 billion consumers. But today we are racing towards 9 billion. And as this chart shows, that is causing some very serious problems. Because we no longer live in a world of scarcity. On the contrary, we now live in a world where the very abundance starts to become a problem. And we neither live in a world of unlimited possibilities. We are slowly beginning to realize that infinite economic growth will inevitably collide with the natural limits of our planet. So let's face it, we are stuck with a fantastic machine that is actually outdated, and we will have to invent something new. Now, in order to design a different machine, we must first ask ourselves on what fuel we want that machine to run. As we all know, the current fuel of the capitalist machine is money. So if we want to change the machine, we will have to change our entrenched ideas about money. And that is incredibly difficult. Because if we now think of money, we usually think of wealth. The value of money is measured by the stuff we can buy with it. Now, some people will say, ho, money doesn't only offer me access to stuff, but it also buys me more profound things, like freedom. But what they really mean is that with money they can buy off everyday worries about food, security, shelter, and some basic comfort, so they can spend their time on other things. Now, those other things, they are interesting. For these are the very things by which we humans distinct ourselves from animals. The life of animals is indeed completely dominated by scarcity, because in nature everything is scarce. Food, safety, comfort, everything is constantly under threat and must either be conquered or defended. But at the top of the ecological system, different rules apply. We also want food, safety and comfort. We also need stuff in order to survive. But as people, we also want something else. That something else, that's what we call culture. The unique ability to create new things, that is what makes us human. and we can take that unique property quite literally. It is what economists call our prime asset. As scarcity is no longer our main problem, and we should rather focus our attention on a fair distribution and proper management of the accumulated wealth, it might be time to introduce a different kind of money. Money that is no longer associated with stuff, but that represents a different value, a value that is more in accordance with our prime asset. The current symbol of money is gold, but let's face it, that is just a legacy from the Bronze Age, because in times of scarcity, a gold bracelet offered a chance to obtain the most necessary things in order to survive. This rare metal has since become a symbol of the scarce goods that can be purchased with money. If we want money to express a different value, then we need to find a convincing new symbol for this device. The latter is exactly what is examined by the Art Reserve Bank. With a simple experiment, we want to test whether it's possible to introduce a new reserve currency. A currency whose value is not based on gold or the promise of endless economic growth, but on the most valuable asset of humankind, namely our ability to create, in other words, on art. Some 400 years after the establishment of the Amsterdam Exchange Bank, we have built a new bank in the financial center of Amsterdam. Without grants or wealthy investors, so it has become a rather simple concoction, consisting of only 3 components: a teller booth, a safe and a coin press. With this industrial coin press, we mint a new reserve currency. This money is no legal tender. You cannot buy anything with it in the shops, but the coins do have a certain value. That intrinsic value is not based on the metal the coins are made of, that is an ordinary copper alloy, but on the object itself. 4 famous Dutch artists are invited to design the coins. Each artist designs a series of 4 coins, and each coin is minted in a limited edition of only 100 copies. So these are quite unique coins with a certain artistic value. Now the question is whether the public will accept the artistic value of this currency. And to test that, we've set up a very simple experiment. The coins are for sale. In other words, they can be exchanged for euros. For an attractive price of about 100 euros, you can purchase a pretty unique artwork of a renowned artist. But this artwork also acts as a currency, so you can also change it back to euros. And in that case, not only the purchase price is refunded, but the bank also provides an additional 10% interest. So the temptation to return the coin is extremely strong. But there's also a strong incentive to keep the coin, because for a reasonable low price you've acquired a unique work of art which value is, or could become, significantly higher than the extra 10% you can get for it now. So you're gonna weigh your options. Do I trust the artistic value of this new currency, or do I rather stick with ordinary euros? If enough people keep the currency, the experiment can continue. But if too many people exchange their coins and claim the 10% interest, then at one point we run out of reserves and the bank goes bankrupt. So the experiment may very well fail. Actually, most economists would say it is bound to fail, for the bank is in fact dispensing money for free. But the very fact that it can fail also makes it interesting. The Art Reserve Bank is not a mere game in a museum or gallery, but a serious experiment which involves serious money and serious risks. Because of the increasing interest, the experiment obviously cannot continue indefinitely. According to the articles of the incorporation, the bank will exist for only 5 years. We started on May the 1st, 2012, and therefore we hope to persevere until May the 1st, 2017. Then in 5 years' time there will be over 5,000 coins in circulation. That means that 5,000 people will have assessed the artistic value of the new reserve currency to be higher than the value of the euro. Perhaps we may then speak of a public acceptance of the currency, for these 5,000 people are obviously not only ardent art lovers. With this experiment, we hope to bring the discussion on the financial system to a more fundamental level. Because after the 2008 crisis, we shouldn't ask ourselves how we can get the world economy going again, but what values we want to become part of economic thinking. Do we cling to the concept of scarcity and the financial model based on the idea of infinite economic growth? Or do we search for a new model based on our inexhaustible ability to create, symbolized by art? Do we believe in golden mountains, or do we believe in ourselves? I would say, do your own test. Go to the website artreservebank.com, change some ordinary money for the new reserve coin, and feel whether it represents a value to you. If not, then you can always change it back.